Welcome students. Today we are going to learn about the exogenous processes and the associated landforms.
If I ask a simple question, we can able to see the inside of the earth surface. Of course the answer is no. So what we are generally noticed? We are generally notice the outside of the earth surface. So the outside of the earth surface that consists of different type of landforms. The different type of landforms like mountains, plateaus, plain and many other type of landforms are there. Now what is the main reason behind such kind of unstableness of the earth? Of course the answer is geomorphic processes. If we split the word geomorphic, geo that means the earth, and morphic means the shape or form. So geomorphic processes means that the forming of the earth surface or shaping the earth surface. So geomorphic processes we further subdivided into two types. One is endogenetic processes and another one is exogenetic processes. What is the meaning of endogenetic? It is very easy to remember. That means the processes which work inside of the earth surface. And on the other hand, exogenetic processes, the processes which work outside of the earth surface, you can say above the earth surface. Like as example, if you remember, this is our earth surface. So if any processes work inside of the earth, so this process is called as endogenetic processes. And if the processes work outside of the earth, the such kind of processes is called as exogenetic processes. So you remember the two type of processes. One is endogenetic, the process which works inside of the earth surface, and the other hand exogenetic, that means the process work outside or above the earth surface. Endogenetic and exogenetic processes again further subdivided into different sub processes, you can say. So endogenetic processes like volcanism, earthquake, orogenic movement, epirogenic movement, and exogenetic processes like weathering, erosion, deposition, transportation. I am telling you few words about such kind of terms. First of all, volcanism, when the hot molten magma comes out from inside of the earth, solidified on the earth's surface. This process is called as the volcanism. Secondly, the earthquake, hope you all know, shaking of the earth's surface is basically called as the earthquake. Next one, the orogenic movement, that means when the two plates collide with each other, there is formation of a mountain. So such kind of process is called as the orogenic process. Example I give you, the formation of the Himalayan mountain. Epirogenic processes, that means when the two plates either upward or downward movement, that means suddenly a block of land going upward. So such kind of process is called as the epirogenic processes. Remember, all these processes work inside of the surface. That's why these processes are called as endogenetic processes. Now on the other hand, exogenetic processes, here weathering, if you think this is a block of land surface or a land, so this land break down in all species. So this process is called as the weathering. Next one, the erosion. Very easy to remember. Suddenly a block of land is eroded by different kind of agents like river, glacier. So this is called as the erosion. And what is deposition? Deposition, you can say, there the eroded material suddenly accumulated in the another places is called as the deposition. Example, here may be a block of land. So this block of land by river, some lands eroded. So this is process is called as the erosion. Now after this erosion, this eroded material deposited into another region. So this process is called as the deposition. So here is the erosion takes place, here is the deposition takes place. Now the question, transportation. So this eroded material from one region to another region is basically move. So this process is called as the transportation.
Now follow this table. Exogenous processes can be walked through the main two processes. One is the gradational processes and another one is the weathering processes. Now we need to learn about one of the important term in geography, that is the gradational processes, and you can say about the gradation. Now gradation means simple thing, that the labeling of the surface. Now the question comes out, what is the meaning of labeling of the surface? What are the process involved in the labeling of the surface? It is very easy. If you think about the geomorphic processes, there is two processes. One is the endogenetic processes which work inside of the earth. Now you think due to the endogenetic processes they originate a landform. Maybe the landform you can say highlands, or you can say as a mountain, or maybe the irregularities of the earth surface. Now these highlands, by which process reach to the sea level region, that is the most important thing. And here is the involvement of another three processes. One is degradation, very easy to remember, that means the loss of land. One is aggregation, that means there is addition of land, and in between you should remember the transportation. So these are the main three processes which are involved in these gradational processes of a landform. Now you just simple thing, gradation is basically a balance work in leveling of a land through these erosional, transportational and the depositional processes in outside of the surface. Clear? So it's basically you should remember there is one important thing, that there is a loss of land, that means the degradation. There is the addition of land, that means the aggregation, and there is the another important thing work in between, that is transportation. One example I give you, like as example Himalayan mountain. We all know that the Himalayan mountain made of sedimentary type of rock, and there is originate of different type of river system. All this river system continuously erodes the upland region, and all the materials, eroded materials, they have carried, that means they are transported through their channel. Now if you think that the materials which are eroded in the highland region, where this material gone, actually these material are deposited in the lowland region, and that's the balance working on. Like as example, each and every day there is trillion of loads of sedimentary type of rocks that have been carried or transported through the rivers. Example, that is the Ganges river, or if you think about the Jamuna river, or many other rivers in India. Now this is basically a process, and if you think about this river system is also a part of exogenetic processes. Just like an example, the agents of the exogenetic processes. So gradation, you should remember, there is continuous process of leveling of land through these three important ways or three important processes. One is degradation, another one the aggregation, and another one the transportation. So we can see that the gradational process can be walked through the degradation as well as the aggregation, including there is another process. One is basically called as the biotic processes. Later I will discuss about that. Now degradation process, further in the table that have been going through many processes like erosion, mass wasting, transportation. So we need to know about all the type of term. So first one, that is the transportation processes. That means the material are transported, or you can say the material are carried from one region to the another region through the different type of agents. I already gave you an example regarding this type of transportation. So transportation, you should remember all the eroded material carried by the agents to the another region. Second important term, that is you should remember the mass wasting. Now first of all, you remember mass wasting means when a materials or the load that have been fall down with the activity of the gravitational force, as well as there is basically the work of water, particularly in the hill region. Very simple thing you can understand. If you remember the term landslide. So landslide is basically a type of mass wasting, or if you remember the soil creep, or you can, if you remember about the rock fall. So landslide is basically the one example of mass wasting. That means a huge mass that suddenly fall due to the gravity as well as the action of water. Now the third important process you should remember, that is the erosion. So what is erosion? Erosion means something there is the eroded of land, but through the different type of processes, that is basically called as the erosion. Erosion can be further subdivided according to their process of work, like as example the fluvial erosion, aeolian erosion, glacial erosion, work of groundwater, or you can say about the marine erosion. So all are the different type of agents, you can say, in the different parts of the world. Like as example, fluvial erosion, which is basically active in the tropical or humid climatic condition. Aeolian erosion, which are basically active in hot and semi-desert or desert type of climatic condition. Glacial erosion is basically the high altitudinal region or the cold region, or you can say the tundra climatic region. That region basically the glacial erosion active. Marine erosion, which are basically active in the coastal region. So all are the different type of erosional process that have been noticed in the different parts of the world. So if you think about any kind of beach, or if you think about any kind of coastal region, you see there is always the wave come. Wave are basically active there, so that region there is an erosion occur. Or if you think about any mountain region, if there is presence of glacier, so if you should remember that all the valleys that have been formed by the glacial action. And in particularly in the humid region climatic condition where the rivers are active, so any kind of landform that have been formed due to the action of different type of river system. So these are basically different type of degradational processes which are work on the earth surface. Now we need to know about the aggregation process. Aggregation process, there is also different type of aggradational processes worked by the different kind of agents, same as the deposition by the river or the fluvials, the deposition by the wind, deposition by the glacier, deposition by the groundwater, and the deposition by the marine waves and the ocean current. So these are the activities which are noticed again by the different parts. As earlier I mentioned that there is an erosional work by the different type of agents like fluvial, glacial, aeolian. So all the eroded materials should have deposited in the another region, so that materials are deposited in the another part. That's why these two processes are includingly, or they have been called as a gradational processes. Now if you think about the biotic processes means where the biological activity are going through by different type of creature, you can say human being, you can say, or the plant, you can say. So all of them, they are sometime they are related with the erosional work, or sometime they are related with the depositional work. So these are basically the part of the exogenous processes. Like as example, the human being sometime digging a hole in human ground. So this is basically a erosional process work, or sometimes these materials are deposited into the another region, or maybe a earthworm that have been by natural process, they are living in the soil, or maybe a rabbits or snakes, they are basically living in the soil. So these all are the things are called as the biotic processes. These are also the part of the exogenous processes. Now you go to the another type of exogenous process, that is basically weathering. Simple thing, the two type of weathering generally notice on the earth surface also is relates with the biotic processes. Including biotic processes, there are basically three type of weathering processes. But if you think about the weathering processes, the most common one, that is the mechanical weathering and the chemical weathering. So what are the mechanical weathering and the chemical weathering? Mechanical weathering is basically called as the physical type of weathering, where is the shape or the size, or you can say the geometry of the different type of rocks or the debris materials or the tellers are changed. So that type of weathering process further subdivided into the different ways, like the exfoliation, block disintegration, granular disintegrations. So all are basically the mechanical weathering. During these processes, the materials are break down into the small pieces, just like a larger block of lands break down into the small pieces. So that is basically called as the mechanical weathering. Now in case of the chemical weathering, you should remember the chemical composition of any materials are changed. So that is basically relates with the exogenous processes also. So these are the part of the chemical weathering, and these are the part of the exogenous processes. So you should remember all these thing. Now I am going to tell briefly about the all the topics. If you think about the exogenous processes, main important thing that the exogenous process works over the surface. There are the most two important one is the gradation, another one is the weathering. Gradation means the leveling of land, weathering means the process by which the disintegration and the decomposition of the land masses. So these are the two things you should remember. Gradational process can be worked through the degradation, aggregation, and in between the transportation work form. Degradation means the loss of land, aggregation means there is the addition of land, and transportation all the losses materials or the eroded materials carried by the different agents, and that materials are accumulated into the another region. That time it have been called as the aggradation of the land. So you should remember this term very carefully. And as well as the weathering means, repeat, that is the disintegration and the decomposition of the land through the different type of weathering processes. So hope you understand this video. If you have any query and the question regarding this topic or the exogenous processes and the different type of associated landform, you can ask me through written format to my personal WhatsApp number 9804653116. Repeat, 9804653116.